Greetings, friends, and welcome to another episode of The Mistake Zone, your weekly dose of our lives and the mistakes within them. My name is Jaren Wade. Joining me, as always, one of my best friends in the whole wide world, Matt Alba. Hey, Matt.
Yo.
How are you doing?
Yo, I'm doing good.
Matt, that's great. And I'm feeling great this week, Matt.
Nice.
I've played some video games. I know you've played some video games. And Matt,
Mm-hmm.
I watched some anime.
Oh, man, again. Damn, Jaren, that's 2 weeks in a row. You're going to be overloaded on anime.
2 weeks in a row. And Matt,
Mm-hmm.
I watched the latest episode of Hololive No Graffiti. But Matt, not gonna lie, this time last week I watched the Risu-centric episode around 7 times, or at least several times by time of recording. Matt, unfortunately, you know me, Matt. Muna is probably up there, probably my Oshi, for lack of a better term, but only watched her episode 4 times today, Matt. Only 4 times.
Damn, dreams
Not
dead.
as strong as the Risu episode, if I must admit. But Matt, something that I wanted to bring up, just because I went to bed really late last night because I ended up watching 2 episodes. There's only been 2 episodes released. But on Netflix right now, there's this reality competition show called Physical 100. Where I'm not sure if you've heard about this, but essentially they took 100 of essentially Korea's most, let's say, physical specimens of people. So you have bodybuilders, you have athletic YouTubers, you have gymnasts, you have people from the military, baseball players. So you have a wide range of people who are really at their physical peak of their basically physical genre, and they're all going to compete for around 300,000 USD, I believe was the conversion. But it is, I believe, 5 rounds, and everyone.
Did you say $300 US?
300,000 US
Oh,
dollars.
300,000.
I'm not sure if I
Okay.
dropped the thousand part. But Matt, I'm not sure if you've watched these kind of reality competitions on Netflix before, but before the first round, they had the pre-elimination round, which essentially they compete and the winners would have an advantage. Well, the top 50 would have an advantage over the bottom 50. And for this pre-elimination game, it was essentially they had to hang on suspended over a body of water, and essentially whoever held on the longest would win the advantage, and whoever fell off first would be the bottom 50. And this would lead into the first round, which was a quote-unquote 1v1 death game where there's 2 areas, one speed and one more physical, and there's a ball in the middle of the area. And whoever is holding onto the ball by the time 3 minutes is done would win the round, and winner goes on in the competition, and the loser would be eliminated from the competition. But why I wanted to bring this up was, Matt, I wanted to nerd out with you and get your thoughts on kind of how you feel about these types of competitions where they essentially bring together people of different disciplines to kind of compete. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up was, again, me and my partner binged this last night, and when we were walking our dog today, we were talking about it kind of extensively, where the first the pregame was, again, it was all upper body. You were suspended over a body of water, and whoever held on the longest would have, more of an advantage. But this is kind of similar to, I'm not sure if you watched this on Netflix as well. I believe it was called Ultimate Drift, which was more or less a gymkhana competition. But again, you had people who were good at drifting, but you also had people who were good at drag racing and all these other car disciplines. And when I kind of describe these type of competitions that bring together a lot of people with different discipline backgrounds, how do you feel about basically the initial general challenges being geared towards one discipline, where, like, do you think it's a bit balanced in that way, or do you just see that as that's the way the competition goes, if you get where I'm coming from?
I get where you're coming from. I do think that it does become that's the way the competition goes. Okay. So since I haven't seen the show, I guess like one thing that's really, one thing that's like really sticking out of my head right now, and Jaren, I don't know if this is sexist, but is it a male and female competition?
Yep. So it's male and female. So Matt, here's what I wanted. This was my second part, and like I'm not trying to get all. I don't want this to sound political in any way, but again, Matt, so essentially I guess your winning, benefit or your advantage would be in the top 50, it will go down from 1 to 50, and whoever was on the upper bracket would get to pick who they faced in the one-on-one death match. And there were two instances where a male, like legit, one of the smaller male contestants picked the cheerleader to go up against one-on-one. And I think the moment that happened, me and my partner kind of really rolled our eyes, just because in this competition, okay, again, it's reality based. We know this is all about production, but you had a lot of people going, hey, I want to challenge myself. This guy is like the top MMA fighter in Korea. I want to go up against him. Or he's an Olympian medalist. I want to go up against him. Oh, these two women are the top Korean boxers. Of course, they're going to go up one another. But then when you have one guy going, honestly, I don't feel like I can beat a lot of the guys here, so sorry, I'm gonna pick you, the cheerleader, to go one-on-one. And I thought, I don't know, Matt, that didn't sit right with me.
I fully understand. Yo, Jaren, competition's competition. Gotta win. You gotta do it. You gotta do to win.
But Matt, what about the fighting spirit?
Jaren. This ain't no anime, Jaren. This is real life. You gotta do what you gotta do to win.
I know this is just me and us going on tangents, but yeah, when I was watching the pregame and then I saw that it was, it was a hanging one. The winners of the two, because there was 2 rounds of 50, and the first round, the winner was a gymnast. The second one was like a mountain rescuer. But then I'm looking at like the big, bulky power builders, the people who are built and trained for lifting, like immediately dropped in the hanging game. And I thought, man, that's like, it's you have to admit that these people are at the peak of their division, the peak of their discipline. But I don't know, to see how skewed that first game was towards people who are experienced with climbing. And then again, when you look at the quote unquote deathmatch games, with the whole point being, oh, you have to hold the ball, but for at least the first area is more so like speed, and it's more of an obstacle course. And the second area is legit like circle with water and like sand surrounding that, and that's like everyone going in area B, that just becomes like a hold. It's like whoever's in wrestling or like MMA seems more geared towards that area. So basically this is a long-winded way of me saying of course it's entertaining. Of course I'm going to continue to watch this, but at the same time, that the balance, like it makes me feel bad that the people who are at the top of their game might be at a disadvantage just because that's not necessarily their expertise. But Matt, that's a long-winded way of me saying I like the show.
Yo, Jaren, man, those are the people. Just they just aren't in meta. You can't hate on units that aren't in meta, Jaren.
That's true. But Matt, so what I do like about this, 2 things about the production before we move on. One, when everyone was gathering in the meeting area, essentially it's this big room with 100 like sculpted busts of the people. So you have to find your like bust. Okay. And it's just like everyone who's like like all of their perfect bodies just like lined up there.
That's pretty good.
What I liked about it is that since it's all the top athletes and like YouTubers and like all these people in Korea within this field, like you had a lot of people who already knew each other. It's like, oh, hey, I know who you are. It's like, and I think I like that better than the typical, oh, everyone's a stranger. I think when there's a level of being familiar with one another, I thought that created a cool dynamic. But Matt, when you lose the one-on-one death match or the elimination round, you have to go back, take a hammer, and break your bust. And I thought that was literally the coolest thing.
Jared's about to ask if they get to like keep their bust when they leave as like a cool prize.
Now, one of the ladies who lost when she had to smash it, she said, "Oh, this is a shame. I wish I could take this home." And then she
Oh
broke
man.
her bust.
Oh, I feel that lady. I feel that lady. I would feel the exact same way.
But yeah, man, that was a physical 100. You can check that out on not necessarily an anime, but some of that anime fighting spirit and sense of competition there. But oh man, if you watched it, Matt, there was some stuff that I would have, broken down with you. But maybe
Uh-huh.
next time, Matt. Maybe next time.
Mm-hmm.
So Matt,
Mm-hmm.
going from alpha bodies to software betas, Matt.
Uh-huh.
I think both you and I have been spending time with the Google Play beta, which is so everyone knows Google Play is the Google Store on Android, or their Google App Store essentially. And they have a client, well, essentially an Android. Would you say it's an Android emulator of sorts, which you can use on your desktop to play the different apps if they're supported on your desktop through the Google Play beta. And I've personally been playing Arknights on it, but Matt, you and I have spent some time using the software, and yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts. What have you been thinking of it, and are you a person who has dabbled in Android emulators in the past?
I think that the Google Play games beta software itself is okay.
Yes.
I actually didn't know going in that it was limited to specific apps,
Yeah.
which when I realized that was very, very disappointing to me.
Really? Were you trying to
Yeah.
play something that wasn't supported, or?
Yeah, I thought like it was just anything that's on the Google Play platform. I thought you could just install it as an app on this game, which was
Yeah.
kind of disappointing for me because Jaren, I've used other Android emulators, like notably the one that always like jumps out to me is like BlueStacks.
Right. Yeah, BlueStacks is the one I've used as well.
But for some reason, Jaren, I know it's probably not, but I feel like anytime I'm using an Android emulator, I feel like I'm installing spyware on my computer.
Matt? Oh man. I forget which. Okay, this is going to be an embarrassing story, but Matt, I forget which Android emulator I used previous to BlueStacks, but I remember I was reinstalling it because I wanted to play the King of Fighters, whatever their side-scrolling brawler mobile game was. And when I was installing it, Matt, this is on me. I fully admit this was on me. I didn't read the fine text properly, and I didn't opt out of installing some sort of plugin. And Matt, when that went through, there was a weird plugin on all my browsers that I couldn't, and there was some external software that I couldn't uninstall, or it wouldn't let me uninstall. So
Oh
Matt,
no.
I had to do a clean reformat
Oh
the
no.
PC, reinstall Windows, just because I allowed this Android emulator to install some sketchy stuff onto my PC.
Damn, damn. I'm so scared that I'm gonna do something like dumb like that and like have to reformat as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I was really, really hoping that this Google Play Games beta was gonna have the ability to just install anything that's like currently on their platform.
But yeah, unfortunately, it's only, I think, a few dozen games, just because, of course, this is what I would assume a majority of people would be using it for, just the games, the gaming apps. And yeah, it's only a handful of software, that Arknights being one of them again. But yeah, that was also something that really stood out to me, where you would think that, oh, you can kind of use everything that was there, but we are on a support case-by-case basis right now.
Yeah, because I've been using it basically for Arknights as well, and like, man, Jaren, I don't know what I feel about Arknights now that I'm back in.
Really?
Jaren, I think my issue with gacha games is that sometimes the characters that I like, just like generally like as a design, aren't that good, or you
Yes.
get better versions of compared to that character, and it feels like you're gimping yourself by using the character that you like. Man, I feel bad whenever I'm playing that game.
I totally I totally know where you're coming from, and I guess I do see this where Matt, I've been playing Arknights for about, I think 3 years or so right now,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I have a real solid squad of characters. Like I honestly, Matt, sometimes when I'm bored, I just look through all the operators that I own in Arknights and think, "Wow, I have all these characters," and it makes me feel
Uh-huh.
good. But I
Hmm.
know where you're coming from just because Arknights to me has such a fun aesthetic to it. I really like a lot of the different character designs, but at the same time, Matt,
Hmm.
as you said, where I currently have a good majority. I don't have all the 6-star operators, which is the highest rarity you can get it, but I have most of them. I have pretty much all of the meta units, and it's one of those things where I, if I'm going into a new mission, if there's a new event going on, of course I'm bringing all my 6-star operators, and if there's a design from a 5-star operator that I like, if there's a costume from a 5-star operator I like, again, it's why would I bring a 5-star operator when there's a stronger
Hmm.
6-star, version that probably does what they do better? Aside from a
Hmm.
handful of the 5-star operators that are pretty just based
Like
on
niche.
their skill, yeah, their niche, you have to bring them
Hmm.
in as well. But again, I think another thing with Arc Knights is the fact that a lot of the 6 stars and the 5-star operators that were released around launch or close to launch are honestly busted. Like a lot of
Uh-huh.
them, I feel like the Arknights team or the developers, they do try to balance their units a lot better now, but I know every now and then you'll have one meta unit that honestly you should have just to make everything easier. But when you kind of look at some of the operators released near the beginning, like Silver at Exu is what I call her, one of my favorite operators, or
Hmm.
someone like Ija, like their skills haven't been matched. Well, like they can get out DPS, but if you have any of those units, like you're still in a really good spot. And then if you have Thorns, if you have Surtur, if you have the Limited Chen, if you have, Posy, I don't know her name, but I call her Posy from this latest banner. Again,
Hmm.
you can pretty much brute force your way through a lot of content. So, yeah, it's one of those things for me, Matt, where if I'm going into a new stage, I'm just bringing all the meta units and seeing what I can do. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, that's kind of my experience or my relationship with Arknights right now. And again, I do like playing it on the Google Play beta just because
Yeah.
I I used to play Arknights on my iOS device, but then when I had that iPad Air 2, space was really tight, so I uninstalled it. I put it on my Android phone,
Hmm.
and I put it on my phone just because I don't have a tablet and I don't actually like having playing on such a small screen. So being able to have also the mouse and key or the mouse support as well for unit placements has been a really good time for me. And for the most part, my experience with the Google Play beta, I haven't really dug deep into, a lot of the different features that people want out of a good Android emulator, whether it be your keyboard shortcuts, whether it be just certain, software, just perks that allow you to easily manage your, let's say, Android direct files and your data so you can upload your inventory into your website sorter and stuff like that. Like I understand that's what
Hmm.
people want, but for me personally, for my what I want is okay, I just want my game to run and control it with a mouse, and the Google Play beta does do that for me. But Matt, is there anything, feature wise that you're really feeling from it?
Feature wise specifically, I don't really have like too much of a want other than just like more games available on that
Yeah.
platform. I don't know if it's the same for you, Jaren, but okay, do you shut your computer down or do you like hibernate it or sleep it between use?
Yeah, I hibernated and sleep it. I'm actually, Matt, I've been
Hmm.
using computers for almost all my life, and I'm not sure of the proper etiquette, but I put mine to sleep unless I'm leaving the house for a long period of time.
Yeah, so I hibernate my computer when I like
Yeah.
between uses. And I find that if I try to start up Google Play Beta after I hibernate it, it'll always just hang and crash. I don't know if that's just something on my. I'm
Oh,
assuming that's
okay.
just something on my end, but like that's like the biggest issue for me. Like I have to actually close and restart Google, like the beta, just whenever I want to use it.
That's strange. No, I can't say that that has happened to me, but I think for me, I do hop between the two, my phone and the Google Play data here and there. Like if I'm in front of my PC and if I'm not. But when I have woken it up to use the Google Play beta, I haven't have run into that issue.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, other than that, it's a neat emulator. It's again, I'm not an expertise when it comes to Android emulators on the PC, but it lets me start up Arknights and it lets me play on my PC. That's good enough for me, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's good enough for
Mm-hmm.
me.
And while we're on that, Jaren, just like playing mobile games on your PC, Jaren, the game that I was kind of referring to earlier when I was saying that I was disappointed that the Google Play Games beta library is kind of small is
Is it Vampire Survivors?
it is not Vampire Survivors, Jaren.
Okay.
It is a new game that I'm pretty sure we haven't had on the show before.
Okay.
Jaren, I voluntarily sell my information to Google through the Google surveys.
Of course. Same.
And mhm. And with my Google Bucks, I bought a game on the Play Store called Slice and Dice. Have you
Okay.
heard of this game?
I have not. Let me Matt, how much is it on the App Store and what kind of game is it?
It's actually free on the App Store, but then there's like an in game like unlocker for like the premium version of the game.
Oh, is the premium version essentially, I'm assuming ad free, you get a bunch of currency, stuff like that? Or
Not really. It's the initial install of the game is like two stages or two, I guess, like levels.
yeah.
And then it just stops, and then you have to pay for the premium version.
Okay.
Actually it's essentially a demo, I guess, which is the better way to like go about saying it.
Right. Okay.
I believe it was like five something US, so I can't remember how much that became Canadian.
So like $20
But-
here. Gotcha.
Yep, $20, $20. And Jaron, I'm enjoying this game. Slice and Dice is essentially a turn-based RPG.
Okay.
The kind of hook of the game is that everybody in your party just has a dice associated to them, and each face of the dice is the action that they can do, or it generates resources for the rest of your party. And the enemies are kind of like set up in a way where you see what they're going to do in the same way that Inscription, you saw what the enemies were going to do to you.
Right. Right.
But like on the player side, everybody's like represented by a dice. All their dice are different. Like you customize it by each player. Like when they level up, for example, you can replace a face on their dice with like a new power.
Oh, that's actually really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very nice light game because like you have a party of five, so you're throwing five dice out. You see what they all are. It's like, okay, I want my warrior to be able to block for my mage, so I'll take the warrior's like face up block dice, and then
Okay.
like, oh, my mage didn't roll anything good, so you have up to 3 rerolls. So you like take which ones you like, and then you reroll the rest, and hope you get something good. And that's basically the general like gameplay loop of the game. And I don't know, it's a nice game where you're trying to optimize your dice as much as possible, because at least on the earlier classes or characters that you have access to, not all the dice faces are like super beneficial. Sometimes there's just like blanks, or something like it's just something you don't need right
Right.
now. Like, oh, I don't need to generate mana this turn because I have like a buttload of it. So it's like a wasted dice if I just like keep it there. And I don't know, it's a nice little like game that has a nice amount of like randomness to it. The reason I wanted to play it specifically on my computer through the Google Play Games beta is that I feel like it's very information dense.
Oh, okay.
So I would have liked to be able to play it like on a bigger screen. Like I think that this is definitely a game that's probably better on a tablet than it is on a phone.
yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah.
Just because I'm guessing with you trying to balance all the spells and all the different move properties, I could see that, readability being just the biggest issue on a mobile device.
Yeah, like that's really like I think my biggest issue with the game. But overall, I think like the game is pretty fun. It has a nice, like I think a very fair difficulty to it because you can like see what your enemies are about to do to you like before you make your actions, which I think is like a very interesting property. Like one thing I actually really like about the enemies system in this game is that not only are they attacking on your turn, but a lot of them have this kind of property where if you bring their HP down a certain point, like if you bring them to 75% HP, they have a little like marking on their health bar that says once they're below this, they're going to react in like this way or they're going to counter in this way like immediately, which I think is a nice little like addition to kind of just make it not just a bring your enemies down as quick as you can. Like you kind of want to balance like who you're going to be focusing on or and when you're going to be like taking their health away.
That's really cool, Matt. You're already selling me on this just because this sounds like a really interesting battle system. But Matt, I have to ask, you know me, how does the game look? What's the aesthetic? What's the art style? And is it something like, how would you describe that aspect of the game?
The art style for this game is very it's like a 1632-bit kind of like it's like a Super Nintendo kind of a graphic system to it. The art style is very kind of like a classic like Western art style.
Okay.
I feel like I don't really know what to compare this to. I feel like if Skyrim were like a Super Nintendo game, the kind of like faces you would see in that game and like kind of designs you would see in that game are what you would see in this.
Okay, so Western RPG fantasy based. Okay, that sounds really cool though.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think
yeah.
it is just the gameplay, the combat system that is really selling me on it.
There's like a whole bunch of like classes in this game too, which is very nice. Like it kind of has like a rogue like aspect to it because once you wipe, you've wiped and you have to start over.
Right.
So having that class variety is like very very nice.
Okay. Oh, this Matt, you're scratching a lot of itches that I just found out that I had. So this is Slice and Dice mobile device. You're specifically playing it through the Google App Store. Unfortunately, not supported by the Google Play beta. But yeah, anything else?
There is a Steam version of this game.
Oh, okay.
Actually.
I need to wish list that, Matt.
Yeah, I just really really was hoping that Google Play Games beta was actually an Android emulator instead of like just a specific games emulator.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully, as the software itself becomes more developed and more stable, that they will start to roll out a lot more games and essentially, hopefully, it will become one-to-one at some point. But until then, Matt, you have it on your mobile device. We can check it out on Steam if we choose to. So yeah, Matt, this sounds... Matt, again, bringing another game that sounds really cool, and I'll wish this at the very least.
Jaren, to be honest, I saw HoloLive member playing this game. Like, oh, this game looks sick.
All right. Hey, that's enough for me, Matt. That's enough for me. So, Matt, speaking about turn-based slicing, I've been playing an indie game called Ronin. I've been playing it on Steam. I picked it up during a Fanatical bundle when it was one of those, hey, choose 1, 5, or 10 games, and as you choose more games, you'll get a further reduced price. And one of the 5 games I chose was Ronin. This was released, I believe, in 2021. So this is actually the way it was described that really, stood out to me was it's a turn-based Hotline Miami. But when I actually played through it, Matt, do you remember from the original Pokemon game, the dungeons where it was essentially, I believe, the Team Rocket dungeon or area, and then the ice cave where if you go one direction, you go all the way to the end, and then you basically have to navigate that maze, that puzzle based on that directional puzzle, essentially.
Oh, the sliding puzzles.
Yeah, it's a sliding puzzle.
Yeah.
So this is a sliding puzzle where you play as the main character Red, and she is tasked with essentially going, from what I understand, trying to extract revenge on the people who wronged her. And Matt, based off what I saw early on, those people used to be her old crew. So it's one of those tales. But yeah, the gameplay is a sliding puzzle where you have to essentially clear out a room full of enemies. And every time you move within their vicinity, they'll move as well. So it's a lot of trying to essentially kite your enemy to a specific area before you can head back in that direction just to cut them up. And so far, there are two different power-ups that you can get that add to the general combat mechanics. One is a time manipulation, where if you have a time power-up, you trigger it and enemies will not move for one turn, allowing you to further move. And there's a redirectional power-up where you have a robot buddy, just because this is pretty much a cyberpunk type story, where you can have your robot buddy essentially go modify your path, where you can add a 90-degree turn anywhere in your given path. So you can also tweak your movement that way.
I see.
And for the most part, it was a pretty fun sliding puzzle. I do like the aesthetic is what you would expect. It is kind of reminiscent of Hotline Miami. The combat is generally fun, but Matt, there's one thing that really put me off this game, and I'm probably not going to continue playing it. It's Matt. I don't think there's an autosave where it essentially the first world was around, I want to say, maybe 10 floors, 10 or 12 floors or so. And I remember quitting out when I got to the boss room just because it was pretty late. So I didn't put my Steam Deck to sleep. I just turned it off. And when I reset the game the following night, I didn't have a continue option. It was just new game. So I thought, that's weird. Maybe it's a manual save. So I did the first world, got to the second world, which is more stealth based, not necessarily focused on you killing everyone, but you trying to avoid robots. So I got like six levels or 6 floors deep, turned the game off, came back the next day, and Matt had to restart from floor 1 of that world. So it seems like it only saves in between the different worlds or the different buildings or whatever you want to call it.
I see.
And that means you have to commit to a run where you have to clear all 12 floors at once. And considering what type of game this is, Matt, I don't think I can actually commit myself to doing that, just because I was treating this as I'm going to play this before bed, bang out a few floors, go to bed, rinse and repeat the next night. But if I have to either keep my Steam Deck asleep or just do one world in one run, I don't know, Matt. I'm really not about that right now. So unfortunately, Red Ronin has a good impression, and if you're a fan of the sliding puzzles and that Hotline Miami perfect run feel, I do recommend it. But it's a type of game you have to commit to. You can't really have a bite-sized feel unless I'm missing something. But I remember when I checked out the pause menu, quit to main menu, there wasn't a save feature there. So I thought that was really bizarre. And honestly, that was my unfortunate turn off for Red Ronin.
Yeah. Jaren, how I guess intuitive is the way you're supposed to be sliding around the levels? Because when I think back to the Pokemon games, or like any kind of sliding puzzle in general, I feel like I have never really, I know what the mechanic is, but I've never been good at planning it out. I always find myself just, okay, I'm going to slide here, and then slide here, and then hope that I'm in a position where I can try to get where I want.
I think in terms of level design, it's been pretty... Sure, I've only done the first world, which for the most part can be considered a tutorial world. And some of the stealth I do like that the second world had that stealth, theme, or compared to the first one, just because it really makes you think differently, where you're trying to avoid the line of sight of these robots in comparison to trying to actually kill the swordsman within the first world. So I think for me, it helps that in whatever direction you're facing, it will show the line of, okay, if you were to go this direction, this is where you're going to stop. So I think
I see.
even just having that visual cue really helps. But there are a lot of, different walls and different environmental or just environment pieces in general, just for you to know where you're going to go, where you're going to bounce off of. And you'll see the exit just because everything is contained to one screen. So it's not scrolling. So you'll know where the exit is. You'll know where all the enemies are. And again, it's one of those things where in the first world, at least, the enemies will only really move if you're kind of around them or if they have spotted you. But with the robots in the second world, they're on their set path as well. So I agree, Matt. Those Pokemon dungeons when I played as a kid always confused me, and it was just me going blind hoping for the best. But I think in between having the movement line and just being able to see the whole level at once, it really does help with readability and being able to kind of navigate where you want to go as well. Plus, it is just a quick, oh, if you die, the level just resets, or you can just restart in general as well. So
I see.
the
I see.
different power-ups really adds cool aspects to it as well. But again, Matt, I want this to be more bite-sized. I want to bang out 1 or 2 floors, but if I have to do 10 or 12 in one go, not for me, Matt. Not for me.
So, Jaren, you said you were playing Red Ronin on Steam, right?
Correct.
Jaren, there are a lot of games on Steam that I have that I wish I was like able to play somewhere else, because they do like exist on a lot of other platforms, and I wanted to get like your opinion on this.
Okay.
Because I want to know what you think about like cross-platform game ownership. Like, for example, I've been playing Mini Motorways and Mini Metro a lot, and they exist. Like, I've been playing them in Steam, and they also have a Google Play version. And I don't want to pay for the game again or pay full price for the game again, because I feel like that's kind of, I don't know, feels sort of bad for me, because I feel like I'm just like, spending a lot of money on the same game again and not getting specifically a new experience. And coming from kind of like a board games point of view, a lot of board games, if they have a digital version of the game, usually within the board game itself, it has some kind of like code in there that gives you a cheaper version of the game. Like, for example, I have the Wingspan board game, and inside of there, they have I think it's like a 40 or 30% off Wingspan on Steam coupon, which I think is like a pretty enough. It was enough that it made me want to buy Wingspan, and I did end up buying Wingspan on PC just to play it there. But like, how do you feel about buying games on multiple platforms, or just I guess cross-platform game ownership in general?
So, Matt, it's actually pretty funny you bring this up just because I honestly think about cross-platform ownership a lot. And I think, as I said, I'm playing Red Ronin on my Steam Deck. And when I look through my entire, I guess, online gaming library, my digital library, I think I wish it was a bit more connected because, Matt, you know me, I was one of those I was never a person who would complain about different digital storefronts, where I know when we were in that big boom of everyone trying to have their own standalone client, you had EA Origin, you had, especially when the Epic Game Store came out, of course you have Steam, you have the Rockstar launcher, you have the Ubisoft launcher. I honestly thought, at that point, who cares? Like, I'm booting up my PC, I'm playing these games. Likewise, when I'm playing a console game, I have all the games to my console. It's all within that platform. I don't see why everyone's in a big hubbub about owning it between different, storefronts at this point as well. And I think this changed when I got the Steam Deck because, Matt, I told it on this show before, or on the Mistake Zone before, where I own Bloodstained on the Switch, but that is a less optimized and not the best way to play it, where I'm now considering, do I want it on Steam, or can I find it for a cheaper price on Steam? So not only can I play it on Steam, that I can specifically play it on the Steam Deck. Likewise, I own Inscription on the Epic Game Store. I own Hades on the Epic Game Store. And now I'm in a situation where I want to play these games on the Steam Deck. How do I get the Epic Game Store running on, the Steam Deck? So for me, it wasn't really a quote unquote issue for me or something I really thought of in the past. But now, since I have a quote unquote powerful device that I can have gaming on the go, no offense to the Switch, but now that alternative exists for me, I'm more inclined to possibly rebuy a game just so I can experience it on my Steam Deck, even though I have it on my Switch. But yeah, I think for me, it is something that I also thought about when I would play a lot of different mobile games, just because there are two primary OSs. You have, the Google, the Android space, and then you have the iOS space. And just to be able to download the games and then being able to log in there, of course, your currency won't carry over just because it's different OSs. But even something like that is really important to me nowadays, just because I have different devices. I prefer to play rhythm games on my iPad, but if I need to for some reason need to play it on my Android device, I need to be able to have my progression go through. So again, I think now I find myself in a situation where cross ownership, or whatever you want to call it, it is something now I think about. It is even double dipping is something I think about more, just because I want that convenience in that way to be able to play it not only stationary at my PC or in the living room, but also on the Steam Deck if I'm not in a place where I have access to the PC, to the the living room setup. And again, Matt, it's the thing where I can play Dead Cells on Xbox Game Pass right now.
Yeah,
but again, I'm still trying to find a cheap Steam version so I can play that on the Steam Deck. So that's how my mind is working right now when it comes to double dipping and cross-platform ownership. It is just because now I find myself in I want to be able to play it on the Steam Deck, and that's really making me more considerate than I was in the past.
And Jaren, I just want to talk about one more thing that absolutely tilted me this week.
Okay.
Jaren, recently on Game Pass, Monster Hunter Rise just came out. And
oh, yeah.
Jaren, me and Rakush have been playing some Monster Hunter Rise together. But before we were able to play together, I own Monster Hunter Rise through Steam already.
Yep.
And Jaren, I am ridiculously angry that the Steam version and the Game Pass version do not have crossplay.
Like crossplay or cross progression?
Crossplay and cross progression, actually.
Oof.
It's wild to me that both games existing on PC isn't enough for them to play together. And additionally, for the cross progression, you cannot use a save from the Steam version on a save for the Xbox Game Pass version because they use different save formats, which I think is wild.
See, again, this goes to my my notion with playing the same mobile game between iOS and Android. And Matt, you know me, I play a lot of different service games, and cross progression is so important to me as well, just because I play Fortnite on my Xbox, but I also play it on the PC. And just to be able to pull up, that Epic account and having all my have all my data seamlessly, between the two. Likewise with something like Fall Guys. Well, I guess, that's under the Epic tree, so that makes sense. But yeah, cross progression is super important to me. And I think that's always been in the back of my mind that, it's the Game Pass version now, but when it was the Windows Store before and Steam, those two not really playing together, that was always something that was really wild to me. And I'm not sure why you can't have them at least be Okay, I know it's a business reason why, but I think as we progress and as the gaming, medium evolves or grows up, that is something that I want to see, to be able to not only have access my data everywhere that supports that game, but to be able to play with the people who are able to play the game on their platform of choice. So yeah, that it does sound really disappointing to me.
But yeah, that's how it goes.
But it can be so much better, man. It could be so much better.
But
But
Jaren, you
yeah.
have to think about this from the business people's point of view. Money.
This would be a way different podcast if we went into that discussion, Matt. But before
Uh-huh.
we end off, Matt, how are you in Rakush? How are your hunting monster your monster hunting adventures? I don't know what I was trying to say there.
It's pretty good. It's like it's Monster Hunter. Like we, go out on expedition, hunt some monsters. I'm using a weapon I've never used before. Baku's using a weapon he's never used before, and we both don't know what we're doing. So, having a good time figuring it out together.
And Matt,
Mm-hmm.
that's all that matters.
Mm-hmm. Yo, Jaren, you should join us. You should join us. It's on Game Pass. It's free,
I might,
basically.
I might, Matt. To be honest, I might.
Nice.
I'll keep you posted. I'll keep you posted.
Mm-hmm.
So, Matt,
Yo.
speaking about Game Pass, this was actually a pretty exciting week for me, just because there was a new game to come out on Game Pass that was actually shadow dropped. It was really officially revealed on the Xbox, developer direct that happened last week. And Matt, I love me a good and you can play the game today.
That's pretty good. That's
And
pretty good.
that happened, and I was excited because Matt,
Yeah.
HiFi Rush was released. This comes from Tango Studios. They were behind The Evil Within and The Evil Within 2. And I love how they addressed that in the trailer, because HiFi Rush is something completely in the opposite realm of their horror bag. And I've only played through the first two, I guess, major sections of, not major sections, but I guess the first two bosses of the game, to kind of give you a feel of how long I've, had with it. Just a couple of hours so far. But Matt, when I was thinking about Hi-Fi Rush, this really reminded me of something. Matt, Hi-Fi Rush to me is a peek at a weird alternate universe where Harmonix actually achieved what they wanted to do with their musical FPS, Chroma, and they were able to branch off and not just be the Rock Band developers, but a developer that was able to infuse rhythm game sensibility into different genres. And Hi-Fi Rush is essentially a blending of a rhythm game mixed with a character action game. And for the most part, I really do think Tango Studios was able to have a successful union of the two. So that Hi-Fi Rush is a character action game, as I said, with whose foundation rests in a rhythm game, in that if you were to attack on beat, you're going to have, that's how you maximize damage, that's how you maximize your combos, and that's how you chase your scores for, it's a character action game. Of course, there's a score chasing element involved, but in no way does it really restrict you, especially if you're not being able, you're someone who isn't able to catch the beat, or if you're not as rhythmly or inclined rhythmly, or I don't know what the term is. Just because even if you were to mash, X or Y for your attacks, they're still going to sync up to the beat itself. But if you're actually able to time it to the beat perfectly, that's where you start to get the bonuses.
I see.
And I think from an accessibility standpoint, I really like how there are a lot of different visual cues to actually help you catch the beat. Not only do you, so you have not necessarily AI, but a robot cat friend with you called 808 that in combat becomes a hovering orb around you. And 808's, blue light will be flashing alongside to the beat. All the different environmental effects or environmental objects, they're pulsing or moving to the beat as well. And if you were to hit the select button, you can actually just bring up a beat counter that scrolls on the bottom of your screen. So when the two half circles meet in the middle for the circle, that's when you're supposed to press it on the beat. So you can there's a lot of different visual cues to really help you with the rhythm. And
that's good.
my only complaint about having the the counter or the rhythm line or whatever, the guide on the bottom of the screen, is I kind of wish you were able to move that to the center of your character, just because for me personally, it's a character action game. You're focused on all the action. So even if you have your 808 buddy flashing to the beat, to maybe see that beat counter trying to go into the middle would really help with readability for me. But just having it on the bottom of the screen itself really helps as well. But yeah, Matt, I think the first thing that really stood out to me is just how this game looks visually. It does have the cell shaded, everyone was saying Jet Set Radio feel, and it does, but it isn't necessarily anime inspired, but it gives me everything from the looks to the character feels really screams out Saturday morning cartoon or after school cartoon that you would see in the early to mid 2000s. And I really do I think that aesthetic really works. But so visually it looks great. The soundtrack so far it has been within that more alternative rock realm. So far I've heard 3 licensed music song tracks, and that one would use the Black Key songs as the intro, and then for the first boss you fought to a Nine Inch Nails song. So I do like how for the big set pieces and for the boss fights they do go into a licensed track, but for when you're traversing the world, it's not open world. It is just straightforward levels, similar to any character action game, with little off the beat paths for you to find collectibles. But those are soundtracked by their in-house composers. But yeah, for the most part, it is within that alternative rock realm. But I did hear rumblings that all the different bosses and their associated world might deal with different genres of music, which I think would be really cool as well, just because
that'd be pretty good.
That's where I hope it's going. But so far the first 2 quote unquote worlds have been alternative rock, which is still fine, which works. But yeah, you play as Chai, who is, so essentially the story for HiFi Rush is we're in a corporate dystopia, I guess. Matt, tell me if you heard this before. Big corporations, and they're calling for applicants for their essentially robot or robotic limb program, and Chai goes in to get a new robot arm. Something happens and his music player ends up traveling with him during the installation process, and now in his central heart system or whatever, his music player is there, and that allows him to see the world through the lens of having this rhythm gauge within him. So it reacts to his music, and he's able to actually attack, have all these different rhythm things happen. So I think it's a neat...
You said a custom soundtrack in this, Jaren?
No, there's no custom soundtrack.
Ah, damn.
That would be pretty cool. And because, Matt, remember in that period within the Xbox 360, PS3, generation, we did see a lot of custom soundtracks. Not only custom soundtracks, but games to react to your custom soundtrack. Something like, I forget what it was. It was like a shoot 'em or a shmup game that had its enemy patterns based on whatever music you were playing, which I thought was pretty cool too. But I think this is something that a character action game that is rhythm based. Hopefully in the future we can see something that does incorporate a custom soundtrack, because I think that would be really cool. But yeah, man, Other than that, so it is like your specific character action game. You eventually unlock new combos for you to do. You have a light attack, a heavy attack. You have a double jump. You have a dodge, and if you dodge in rhythm as well, you'll get. Normally, your dodge is, I believe, one dash, but if you dash to the rhythm, you can get up to three, which I think is pretty
Oh,
cool.
nice.
You have your juggles. In the second world, you'll open up the ability to essentially do a grapple hook for you to essentially grapple into a an opponent, and I think that really makes opens up combat a lot. So for me personally, I think one of the criticisms I've seen so far is that the game does have a lot of tutorial and teaches you a lot in the beginning, and I still feel like I'm in that tutorial phase, even if I've defeated the first two bosses, but the combat has opened up since then. You also do have a there is a party system kind of where so far I only have one crew member, and her name is Peppermint, and for her skill is you can essentially call her in. She acts like a an anime fighter assist. You call her in, and then she'll shoot like her laser gun, and then she'll jump back out. And that I love the idea of having assists in character action games. I think if you were to have a, let's say, the Persona game was a character action game, I think my dream would be to have your party members or even your personas be assists, or just to be able to tag in to a different party member with a different combat style. I think would be really cool. So I'm a fan of the assist system, the tag. It's not a tagging system, but I do like that in these types of games.
Yeah, that's
But
pretty
yeah,
good.
Matt, I think aesthetically it looks cool. I love how not only is the world reacting to the rhythm of the current song, but when Chai, the main character, runs around, you can see his steps being in line with the beat.
Oh,
When
nice,
he's
nice.
his idle animation is just him snapping to the beat. And I don't know, man, it has a lot of cool aesthetic to it, and it's something I really do recommend to check out. But I think for me, it is the fact that one, this game was shadow dropped, but two, this I saw a lot of people talk about how this really fits into the realm of this is a great double A game. And I think this is where Game Pass shines, where it is these experiences that can be shadow dropped. It isn't these big AAA productions, but it is a substantial gaming experience that can be released out of nowhere. That makes me really feel comfortable and enjoy the fact that I'm subscribed to Game Pass, because if it means that I can get experiences such as these out of nowhere. And I hope moving forward that we get to see a lot more of these type of games on Game Pass. But yeah, that's Hi-Fi Rush for the most part. Really digging it. Again, even though it does have a lot of rhythm game sensibilities, even if you're not a fan of that, it's still a really solid character action game, and you can just essentially mash your way past the rhythm stuff. But again,
Sure,
that
sure, sure.
that the tried and true, easy to pick up, hard to master aspect of it. But yeah, for the most part, I really like it. And again, that it makes me think what could have been with harmonics. But is Hi-Fi Rush something that you want to check out as well?
I kind of do. Like, I generally like the idea of these types of games, but I've
Yeah.
always found myself a little bit frustrated actually playing them.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because I don't know. I feel like I am a lot more in like action games like this. I'm a lot more reactionary.
Right. Right.
So maybe having to do that on a beat might not be as ideal for me. But I guess like the enemies are going to be attacking you on beat anyway. So maybe
Yeah.
that won't matter that much, because like when I think of games that are falling into this genre, I think a lot of Crypt of the Necrodancer,
Right. Right.
which I just had, I don't know, I thought the gameplay itself I think is like very, very fun. I just had a hard time sticking on beat, and I found myself falling off beat a lot, and I feel like that was maybe ruining or like dampening the experience.
Okay. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. Have you like played a lot of like games like that? Because I know like Crypt of the Necrodancer. I also think of there's a recent one. Metal Hellslinger, I think,
Yeah.
was a recent one as well. Like, I conceptually like these games, but I always feel like I'm by not being good at rhythm or like staying on rhythm in those sort of situations, I feel like I might be like losing out on a lot of the charm of that genre.
I know where you're coming from because Matt, you know me, I love me rhythm games, but at the same time, I come from the Rock Band Guitar
Mm-hmm.
Hero school of rhythm games where I need the visual element to really come at me just to help me stay in rhythm as well. And I think Hi-Fi Rush does a good job of
Uh huh.
one really easing you into that because it says up front, hey, you can mash your way through it if you want. You don't have to be in rhythm. Your attacks will come out in rhythm regardless. It will sync it up automatically, but
Mm-hmm.
if you are able to do it, that's when you get the bonuses. So again, it does. You're not really expected to be in rhythm unless you want to score chase. But if you don't want to do that, you're perfectly fine doing that. They explain, hey, the enemies do hit on beat as well, so you can take that as another cue. So I think even if that is something that you are not a fan of, or you might think that it might not be your jam, I do think you should give it a try just to see if you're able to get that middle ground. Just because, again, even though it is a rhythm game at its
Mm-hmm.
foundation, it's not. It's still a character action game, and you can get through that as well. But another part I wanted to bring up was I do appreciate being able to for it to sync to the beat of whatever song is playing. Just because, Matt, when I typically play character action games, I'm a mashy masher. When I'm playing Bayonetta, I
Uh-huh.
told you when I was playing through Bayonetta 3, oh no, I'm mashing all the attack buttons, now my forearm hurts. But I think get
Uh-huh.
with Hi-Fi Rush, the fact that there is a essentially a 4 count or whatever, I don't know the correct music terms, but a combo is essentially four attack hits. So I'm actually trying to time it of, okay, instead of just mashing X, all of a sudden it's X, 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 where I'm forcing myself to slow down, to not mash as much and be more in line in the beat. So one, my forearm thanks me, but
I see.
two, it is making me kind of less frantic and really making me have a more comfortable flow of battle as opposed to nope, got to get everything in and hope for the best.
Mm-hmm.
So I really do appreciate that aspect of Hi-Fi Rush as well. But yeah, Matt,
Oh,
yeah,
Jaren, can you like full combo a encounter or a level? Is that a thing?
not necessarily. I don't think.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, but because there is no traditional note highway, you just have the beat counter in the bottom. But I guess technically a full combo would be in the character action sense of, because each hit, it ranks you. Oh, you you hit on beat perfectly, or you hit it good, or you just missed the beat completely. I guess in Hi-Fi Rush, a full combo equivalent would be one, not dying, not getting hit, but two, being able to get all, not necessarily all perfects, but all S rankings in all the combat, I guess, situations. Because it is similar to Bayonetta, where each combat encounter you get graded at the end, and depending on, oh, how was your combo, how on beat were you, how fast you clear, how much damage you take, you get all rated, and then at the end you'll get a grade with S being the best, or maybe even higher than S. So maybe a full combo is just getting S's on all the combat encounters.
Oh, true, true, true.
But yeah, man, this was a pleasant surprise this week. I really do hope we see more shadow drops. And I think with the reception, the positive reception that Hi-Fi Rush is getting, I hope, this really makes Microsoft inclined to release more games or greenlight a lot of projects, just because I believe we said it that the developer or the main developer behind, or the producer behind Pentiment said, yeah, without Game Pass, this game might not exist. And maybe so if we're able to see more games like Pentiment, more games like Hi-Fi Rush come to Game Pass, that would really make me feel good about continuing to keep the subscription, just because that could mean,
Mm-hmm.
hey, all of these cool games are coming out of nowhere of a particular quality, high quality as well. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it, Matt, and I do recommend for you to check it out if you can as well.
True, 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 true.
So Matt,
Mm-hmm.
that was another good episode of the Mistake Zone. A lot of games this week, Matt. A lot of games. Some anime, technically, some anime, and reality show competitions. But what can you do, Matt? That has been the Mistake Zone. As always, Matt, I want to thank you for joining me this week and all your contributions to the show. I want to thank all our friends for joining us. I want to thank Korean reality shows. I want to thank Arknights. I want to thank HiFi Rush. I want to thank... No, you know what, Matt? I don't want to thank Google Play Beta until they support all the games you want to play.
I feel that.
But yeah, Matt, that's been the Mistake Zone, and please take it away.
This has been the Mistake Zone, and we're all out of busts of ourselves.